In this snippet, I'm going to be walking you through some of the basics of Git, basically things that you need to know just to get started working with it. So if you are very new to Git and you want to start pushing your work up to a repository, then hopefully this will help you out. We're going to be covering things like actually pushing our code up to a repository. We're then going to be looking at things like branching and making changes, merging them changes in, and then dealing with things like conflicts and also stashing as well. So these are things that I pretty much for smaller projects just use every day, and really they're just the kind of foundations of Git. So we're going to roll through these, and then hopefully by the end of this you'll be able to start pushing your work up, and this will really benefit your workflow. So first of all, I just have a very small project here. It doesn't matter even if you don't use PHP, but we're going to be working with this example, making changes, pushing it up, and we'll be good to go. So we're actually going to be using GitHub here. I've chosen GitHub just because I use it myself, and it's pretty straightforward to work with. It's very, very popular. So if you don't have a GitHub account, you're going to want to go ahead and create one, move over to your repository area, and start to create a new repository. So our goal, first of all, then, is to push up our project just here to GitHub in the best way possible, and that involves also ignoring some files as well. So we'll deal with that in just a minute. So let's go ahead and create a new project in here. I'm just going to call this project, and I'm going to set this to private. It can be public or private. It will work in the same way. So let's create this out, and here we go. So before we start to discuss any of this, the first thing that we're going to do is come over to the command line. So I'm currently within the directory that I have open in my text area. And the first thing is, assuming you have Git installed. If you don't, that's a good idea. You're going to need to go ahead and do that. We're going to go ahead and run git init. That stands for initialize, and that will initialize an empty Git repository inside of that directory. Really importantly, you'll want to be in the root of your project. So the next thing is, if we go ahead and run git status, we're going to be running this a lot. This will kind of give us an overview of, depending on which branch we're on, the kind of status of our files. Now you can see here that we have some untracked files. These are ready to be added and then committed and then pushed up to the repository that we've just created. So really, if you are very new to Git, just think about it as kind of uploading files. It doesn't quite work that way, but that's pretty much what we're doing here. Now, the only thing is, you may wish to exclude some files. Now, in this case, we don't want to push up our vendor folder. Now, I'm working with PHP, so I'm working with Composer. This just contains all of my dependencies of my project. We do not want to include this, and you may have other files that you want to exclude as well. So we're going to look at doing that now. So depending on the operating system you're using, you can either say touch and then create a file called .gitignore, or you can just create that within your project. So it works the same way. All I've done is just created this file. So now what we want to do is specify the files that we want to ignore. So in this case, or folders or whatever pattern, in this case, it's just vendor. And maybe if I had a DS store file, which is created on Mac operating system, I may wish to exclude that as well. Either way, the most important thing is if we run git status again, notice that the vendor folder is no longer in here, and we have our git ignore. So it's fine to obviously commit this up, but that's pretty much it. Okay, so what we now need to do is, because we have untracked files, we want to go ahead and add them. Now you can either add these individually by just specifying the file name here, or most of the time you'll probably just want to use a dot, which will go ahead and add all of them files. So we're going to be doing this a lot. It sometimes gets a little bit complicated if you're not used to this kind of Git workflow, but that's pretty much what we do. Now, if we run git status again, notice that we now have these files tracked and we can commit them and then push them up. So a commit is basically a message with all of your changes saying what you have done. Now, in this case, it's just a kind of initial commit. So we can go ahead and say git commit. We use the M flag just here to specify a message, and I'm just going to say initial commit. If, for example, I was doing something very specific, I would go ahead and include that message. Go ahead and run this, and they have been committed. Now, if we run git status again, notice we have nothing to commit, working tree clean. So before we start to push this up, we need to add a remote. Now this will go ahead and reference the repository just here. And then when we go ahead and push up to a specific branch, and we'll talk about this in a minute, that will go ahead and push up our changes. So from GitHub, we can just copy and paste this in, and that is our remote added. Now, when we say git push origin master, so let's just go ahead and type this in now. So git push origin master. Origin is what we're pushing to. So our origin is this whole repository here, which is this, and master is the branch that we want to push to. Now, at the moment on this project, we only have one branch, which is master. So we're going to look at branching out from master in a bit, but that is pretty much what we're doing. So we're pushing up to our origin, and we're pushing to the master branch. As soon as we go ahead and run this, that's going to push everything up. And now that's finished, if we head over here and give this a refresh, notice that all of our changes are in here, or at least the changes that we committed. So that is, in this case, pretty much everything, excluding that vendor folder that we ignored from in here. Okay, so now that we've done that, that is pretty much pushing our project up initially. So if you have an existing project, it might be a good idea at this stage to go ahead and determine what you don't want to push up, add it to your git ignore file, and push it up to the repository. Okay, so now that we've done this, let's go ahead and just clear the terminal out. What we want to do now is make a change. Now, what we could do is just stay on the master branch, go ahead and modify, say, over here, maybe create a new route or change anything around, really depends on your project, and then push it up to master. Now, the reason that this is not necessarily a good idea is when you create a branch, you come away from master, you create all of your changes within your branch, and then you, when you're ready, merge that branch in. So this is a kind of good workflow to get into the habit of doing. Now, in terms of branches, if we just run git branch, you can see that at the moment we only have one branch, and this is highlighted in green. That means we have or we're on that current branch. Now, to create a new branch, there's a couple of ways that we can do this. So we can either say git branch, and then we can give the name of our new branch. Now, let's just say that we are building a contact form on this very plain site that we have just here. Well, in this case, what we would do is we would create a branch called contact, or whatever we wanted to say. So let's go ahead and do that now. That's created a new branch, but what it hasn't done is switched us over to that new branch. So we're still on the master branch, and we can see that by running git branch again. Again, that's highlighted in green. So to switch over to this branch to start working on our contact feature, we can use git checkout and then the name of the branch. It might seem a little bit odd. It is a little bit of an odd command, but there we go. We're switched over to the contact branch. Now, if we run git branch again, of course, we will see that we're now on that branch. Now, there's a much easier way to do this. If you're creating lots of branches and you just want to save yourself a little bit of time, let me just go ahead and switch back to master. So to switch back to the master branch, we just do a git checkout again on master, and I'm just going to go ahead and run git branch with the D flag, and I'm going to give the name of the branch I want to delete. So be really careful with that. But now if we run git branch again, you'll notice that we only have one. So the quicker way to do this is to use checkout and then pass in B to actually create a branch, and then go ahead and give the name of your branch. And what that will do is it will switch to a new branch, or at least create it first, and then it will switch over. So if we run git branch again, you'll see that we're on that. So that's just a little bit of an easier way. I always use git checkout with the B flag and then the branch name. Okay, so with that out of the way and done with, what we can now do is safely start working on our new feature, push this up, and then when we're happy, we can merge it into our master branch. So let's just go ahead and do anything here. It really doesn't matter what we're doing. And let's just say contact, and we will change this text over to contact. So let's say we've done all of our work. We've maybe committed along the way, so you can add more commits. So let's say you created your contact design. You may wish to go ahead and just run git status, go ahead and say git add dot git commit, and then go ahead and give your message. So in this case would be contact design. Just imagine that I've created the design for that. And then you might say, well, actually now I want a post route. So you would go ahead and create a post route to actually submit that through, like so. And now you've got unstaged changes. So committing along the way is a really good way to kind of keep a nice history of all of the small changes that you've made, just in case you need to go back to anything you did before. If you do all your work and then do one huge commit, it can be really difficult to find what you've done. So just commit along the way as you kind of implement a new feature or you build something inside of your branch. So it really depends on preference and who you're working with, the team you're working with. But if you're on your own, it doesn't matter as much, but you kind of get the idea. So let's go ahead and add this new change. So the first commit was adding the design. The second commit was adding the actual contact functionality. So let's go ahead and commit again and say added contact functionality or whatever you wanted to say. And now all we need to do, if we run git status again, nothing to commit, working tree clean, we can go ahead and push it up. Now, what we don't want to do is say git push origin master, because we're not pushing to the master branch. What we want to do is push to our contact branch. And if you forget the name of the branch you're working on, you can see that just here. So let's go ahead and push to origin contact and wait for that to finish. And there we go. So if we go ahead and check this out here, you can see that already GitHub has said that we have a recently pushed branch. Of course, in master, we don't have them changes because we are on a separate branch. But what we can do is now submit a pull request. So if we say compare and pull request, this will allow us to review any changes that we've already made. And then we can just go ahead and once we're happy with it, maybe add a comment in, change the name of the pull request. We can create that pull request and that will go ahead and create that for us. So anyone can now review this. You can review it. You can see your 2 commits here. So nicely separated out. Contact design involved adding this. And then if we go back, adding contact functionality involved adding that post. So that's pretty much how that works. So once we're happy with it, maybe our team has reviewed it or we've just had a really good look through all of our commits just to see what has happened, all of our file changes just to know that we're happy, we can go ahead and merge this in. So once we do hit merge pull request, and then confirm the merge, what this will do is it will merge all of our changes into our master branch. What we can then do is safely delete the branch. Now this won't delete the branch locally, it will delete it on your remote. So in this case, it will delete it on GitHub. We'll look at how we delete this branch in just a minute. If we go over to our project though, now we see that we merged in this request from the contact branch, and over on index, we now have them changes moved over into master. So the reason that this is helpful over pushing everything up to master, I know you will have your commit history, but it means that you get that extra stage in between where you can review your changes, other people can review it, and then everything can be safely merged in. Now, there are some problems with this. You will get conflicts at some point or another, but we're going to deal with them in just a minute. Okay, so now that we are all merged in, what happens on our kind of local machine? Well, if we go ahead and run git status, we're still on that contact branch, even though it's been deleted on our remote. Now, what we'd want to do at this point, once we have merged a branch in, is go ahead and check out the master branch. So let's go back over to master. Now, at the moment, if we switch over to our text editor, notice that the state of this is as it was before we started working on our contact branch. That's because all of the changes are on the remote repository. So how do we pull these in? Well, we run git pull. That will go ahead and pull down all of the changes from our master branch. Now you notice at this stage, it doesn't know where we want to pull from because we didn't set an upstream. So if we go ahead and run this command here, like so, we want to go ahead and set the upstream to origin master, and that means that when we're on the master branch, when we run git pull, this will pull from master. So originally what we saw over on GitHub was when we originally pushed our changes up, git push u origin master, that will go ahead and automatically do that for you. So if you are starting a new project, you might wish to do that as well. Okay, so now that we've done this, let's run git pull again, and notice that that will actually now pull down our changes, and you can see the changes just here. So now over on our local machine, we have them changes pulled down after we have made that merge. Now, the other thing to note is if we run git branch, again, to list all of our branches out, notice that we still have our local contact branch. So sometimes this can get a bit overwhelming. You may wish to just go ahead and tidy these up. So what we can do is run git branch D, as we've already seen earlier, and then just give the name of the branch. So now if we run git branch again, we're nice and clean, everything's been merged in, and we're pretty much done. Okay, so now that we've done this, we're going to look at a problem that you might come across. Already what we've covered is enough just to, on your own, just start working on projects, pushing things up, committing changes, and if we just head over to our project here, and come over to our commits, you get a nice history of everything you've done. So if you wanted to maybe revert back to something and manually do that, you can go through and do that. You can manually revert things, or you can actually specify that you want to revert things, but that's a little bit out of the scope of this. Okay, so now that we've done this, let's look at what happens when we get a conflict. So just imagine that you're working on your project with another person or even yourself, and you have maybe a few branches that touch the same file. So to kind of simulate this, we're going to go ahead and create a new branch. So let's say git checkout B, and I'm going to say something like contact update. So let's create a new branch for that. And let's go ahead and just change something. So let's say that we wanted to add an exclamation mark just inside of here. Well, let's go ahead and run git status. So we know that we have made a change to index.php, but it's not staged. Go ahead and add that. Go ahead and commit this. And we'll just say changed contact design. And we'll go ahead and push this up to that branch. So we know that the branch is contact update. So we go ahead and push that up. Now, of course, that's going to be pushed up. It's not merged in yet, but we now have a branch with that change all ready to go and waiting. Now, let's say either you or another developer wants to create another branch. Now, you'd create another branch off of a master, typically. So let's go ahead and check out master and go over to the master branch, and let's create a new branch off of that. Notice that while we're doing this, all of your changes will be kind of reverted to the state of that branch. So you can see that that exclamation mark has gone. Now we've switched over to master. So if we go ahead and check out, create a new branch, and let's call this contact fix. And we will go and make another change. So let's say we want to change the text of this to contact form, and that's kind of our fix. So it's just kind of pseudo fix. Okay, so the problem is now that if we go ahead and run git status, add this change, and remember we're on a completely new branch now, and we go ahead and commit this, and we say fix contact page, and we push this up to that new branch, so contact fix. What we now have, if we head over to GitHub and over to our main project, is 2 new changes. So the problem here is that we have created 2 changes that touch the same part of this file. So what we need to do is merge one of these first. We can't merge both of these at the same time and have it all nicely merged in. So let's say that we wanted to go ahead and make a pull request on contact update. Remember, that's just adding the exclamation mark. So let's create a pull request for this, and we'll go ahead and merge this in. This is all fine. We can merge this in like so, and delete the branch on the remote if we want to. Now, the only problem here is when we go ahead and try and merge in our contact fix, if we create a pull request here, we see that the branch has conflicts that must be resolved. So of course, the problem is now we're trying to merge in the following change, but we have an already changed line here on master. So we can't merge this in. It's not going to be magic and decide that, oh, we're going to add an exclamation mark after here. So we need to kind of deal with this. And this will rarely happen unless you're working on a team of people or you're working with another person, but it's still worth noting. So what we're going to do is just come over to here. We're going to just run git branch just to see the state of our branches. We're on contact fix, and of course this is the one that we want to merge on. Now what we want to do is merge in the changes on master, because remember contact update was merged into master, and we want to merge them changes into contact fix. That will create a conflict which we need to go ahead and manually resolve. So let's go ahead and check out master. And then what we want to do is pull down the latest changes. So let's say git pull, that will pull down the already merged branch. And now what we want to do is go ahead and over to our branch that has the conflict. So contact fix, which is the one we're trying to pick up. So let's go over to contact fix. And now we want to say git merge master. Now there are loads of ways that you can kind of merge in changes, and there are better ways, but generally for very small things, this is absolutely fine. So let's go ahead and merge in master. And what we see now is auto merging index.php or any other files that had a conflict. And we see a conflict here, merge conflict, automatic merge failed, fix conflicts, and then commit the result. So let's go ahead and just clear this out and run git status. You can see that we have a file in here, untracked, unmerged, ready to go. And now notice that we get this just here. So this here is the current state of our branch, and then this is what's currently being merged in from master. So if we come over to the branch that we can't merge in, this is contact form, like so. And then we have what's on master, which is the fix that we applied earlier. So it depends on the project you're working on, how many changes have been made, what's been changed. Sometimes you can get into a huge mess with this, but of course this is a very simple change. But the main thing is we want to sort this out. So in this case, maybe we just want to say, well, I was trying to add form inside of this, but the fix was actually adding an exclamation mark. So in this case, a really simple and silly example would probably just want to fix it by kind of merging that in. Again, this is really, really simple, but usually you won't get into too much trouble depending on how many people you're working with. So that's pretty much that done. We're ready to go ahead and add this in, commit it, and push it up. So let's go ahead and say git add dot, go ahead and commit this change. So we're just going to say something like merged in changes or something a little bit more descriptive. And then we want to go ahead and push this up. So git push origin, and we want to push it up to contact fix. So it's all fixed up and ready to be merged. So let's go over to our branch again, over to here, give that a refresh. And now, of course, there are no conflicts with the base branch because we've effectively merged in the changes that we need. Now we can go ahead and submit a pull request, go ahead and review it, and delete the branch, or at least submit it, review it, submit it, and then delete the branch. So if we come over to project, over to index, we have the best of both worlds and everything is merged in. And like I said, this is a really simple example. It can get a little bit more complicated than this depending on how many changes are being made, but that's pretty much how we merge things in. And there are a couple of other ways to do this. We can do interactive rebasing. So if you do get into a little bit of trouble and you find this doesn't work for you, go ahead and check that out. Okay, so now that we've done this, we want to talk about stashing changes. First thing I'm going to do is just come over and let's just go over deleting these local branches. If you need to delete your branches on your remote, in this case it's GitHub, if we come over to the project and then come over to branches, you can see that we've only got one branch. We don't have any because we deleted them after we merged in our changes and merged in them pull requests. But still, on our local machine, we have these two branches. Now, first of all, because we've merged in a pull request, we want to go ahead and check out the master branch, and we want to go ahead and pull down all of the changes. That's the branch that we just merged in there. Now we want to go ahead and say git branch D, go ahead and say contact fix, and do the same thing for the contact update. Go ahead and run git branch, and we are nice and clean, and we have a master branch that we can start working on. Okay, so let's review stashing changes because I think this is really, really important. Let's say that we were just about to create a new feature. Let's say that this was the sign up feature. We create a new branch called sign up. Of course, if we run git branch, we know that we're now on that branch and we can start to make any changes that we need. So let's go and just create a new route in here. Doesn't really matter in this case what we do. And let's just say sign up and say sign up. Okay, so we have created something. We've created a new feature, but an emergency comes up and we need to very quickly go over to our master branch or any other branch and quickly apply a fix. Now, in this case, let's just say we wanted to directly push to the master branch. Well, we have unstaged changes. If I go ahead and check out master, have a look what happens. So we've switched over to master. Let's run git status, and essentially this change that we made over here, adding this, has kind of followed us. Now we might not want that. We might want to move over to master in the state that it's currently in, apply a fix, and then move back over to our sign up branch and just carry on working on the new feature that we're implementing. So this is where stashing comes in handy. So first of all, let's go and move back over to our sign up branch. Let's go ahead and clear this out and let's run a git status so we can see how we are. So essentially what we want to do is stash the changes that we have on our sign up branch, move over to master, a clean version of master, and go ahead and make changes, and then kind of apply the stash changes back to our sign up branch. This sounds really complicated, but just kind of think of it as moving away your changes while you do something else and then just pulling them back again. So in this case, what we would do is we would say on the branch that we're currently on, git stash. That will stash away our changes. And if we go ahead and run git status, you can see that pretty much all the changes you've made look like they've gone. Now they've not gone, they're just kind of stashed away. But the key thing here is what we can now do is check out master, run git status, everything is nice and clean. We can go ahead and make a fix. So let's say that the fix was adding an exclamation mark to home, going ahead and adding our changes in, committing the changes. So let's just say fix homepage. Let's just say that was an emergency. Go ahead and run git push origin master. In this case, we're just kind of hot fixing the master branch, and that will go ahead and push up our changes. So if we just come over to our projects again, over to index, you can see that that change has been applied. Okay, so now what about getting our changes back? Well, if we go and check out the sign up branch again, run git status, our changes are still gone. Now, what we can do is run git stash list. This will list out all of the stashed files or changes, if you like, that we've gone ahead and stashed away. Now, in this case, there's a couple of ways to do this. If you have multiple things stashed away, you can either say git stash apply and then give this kind of identifier just here. So you could do that, Or if you just want to pull back the latest stash changes, you would just run git stash apply on its own. So typically what I would always do is do a git stash list and then choose the stash that I want to pull. It just feels a little bit safer to me, but again, entirely up to you what you do. So let's go ahead and run this. Remember, potentially there could be lots in this list. So depending on how many changes on different branches you've stashed away, of course, what it will do is it will tell you the branch that you've stashed this away on, so you can kind of identify it from this. And as you can see here, our changes are now back. So what we can now do is, if we head over to our text area, we see the changes reverted that we stashed earlier, and we can continue working on this feature. So we can go ahead and add these changes, assuming that we're done. Going ahead and committing this up. So let's just say sign up page. Go ahead and push these up. So in this case, it would be git push origin and then using the branch sign up. And that will go ahead and push these up for us. If we come back over to our project here, there it is. Go ahead and either continue working on it and continue adding files, committing, and then going ahead and pushing up. Either way, we can now go ahead and merge this in like so. And we are done. We can go ahead and delete this if we're finished with it. Of course, we can go ahead and check out master again, making sure that we pull down the changes because we've merged them into master on our origin or our remote, and we can go ahead and continue. So in this case, what I would always like to do once I've finished is run git branch d on sign up, assuming I've finished on that, and we're done. So that is pretty much it. Although this isn't a complete guide to using Git, these are the features that I pretty much use every day. And as long as you understand these few concepts that we've discussed, then moving on to more advanced things when you need them will be a lot easier. So hopefully this has helped you if you are new to Git and you want to start working with it.